The honest truth of it all is that I am not the same girl that I was October 4th before Venus retrograde, and that is the tea summarized there. I think all of us knew who look at astrology or use ephemerises that this Venus retrograde of 2019 from October 5th to November 16th would be a doozy. Like, it's dragging through the terrain of Scorpio, which is interested in rebirth, transformation, psychology, and intimacy, and that really raw parts of ourselves. And that's where it starts. And then it goes back into Libra, which is which is Venus's ruler, one of which, and also the sign of partnerships and relating to people. So when you start it with like digging into, because remember that retrograde is an internal energy. When a planet goes retrograde, it's closer to the Earth than out of any other point on its transit. So the energy becomes much more pronounced, and it also directs itself inward. So all of a sudden we start looking at our own our own Venusian, how we approach Venus matters in our life. So we all knew it was going to be a doozy with the energy and Scorpio and Libra, but I don't think anyone knew how much of a doozy it would be. Like, my goodness, it feels like it's been decades. So I was inspired just to do a recap video sharing my experiences. I also asked for questions from you guys or comments that you guys had, and I'll be reading some of those. Just to begin, so a lot of people have reported either their ex coming back or having dreams about their exes, and no like real ex came back of mine, but my Venus retrograde started off with the night of October 5th, which, by the way, the day that Venus went direct and also that it went retrograde is both on Fridays, which is Venus's day. Each day of the week is ruled by a planet, so I love that. Like, the cosmos is just so synchristic sometimes. I'm obsessed with it. But, so that night of the 5th, that Friday night, I had a dream that really, really shook me to my core. And it was that my, who I would consider my first, like, true love, like, madly in love with this individual, was dating this girl who was my best friend in high school. And this was just a dream, keep in mind. And they're in 2 different cities, they've never met, but they were dating in the dream, and I was shook. And this was a best friend who, in high school, had started dating someone right after I broke up with him. And so, like, obviously, that really hurt our friendship, that really hurt me, and, I mean, it was high school. But when I woke up from that dream, I felt that pain, that wound, just reopen within me. Like, I had forgotten about it. Like, that boy, like, it was fine. Like, he was not it. But, I just, like, remembered how hurt I was. I felt like I was hurt all over, just redone again with this new ex whom I really, really loved and adored. And I was over the previous instance. But that really set the tone of my Venus retrograde story, in which it took a lens. When it started in Scorpio, it took a lens to our own psychology, revolving love. Remember, Venus retrograde, that's an internal journey of how we relate with Venusian themes or love. And Scorpio is very concerned with psychology, raw, like, and you might not realize things had such an impact on you. Like, honestly, if either of them are watching this video, they'd be like, come on, like, we were in 9th grade. And I'm not saying that it was a big thing, but it did impact me. It did wound me. All of our experiences do to some extent. And I think Scorpio was just, like, dragging it and seeing, like, how do you let these past situations kind of poison your future partnerships? Because it's true, I always, like, I like to keep my friends and my, like, boyfriend separate now as an adult, and I never thought about why that is. Like, I don't like everyone hanging out in a group. Like, I like to spend my time with my boyfriend and, like, spend my time with my friends. Like, I don't like bringing everyone together. It, like, stresses me out. I have a lot of, like, one-to-one partnerships, or friendships, or just relationships in general, and I never thought about it until I woke up from that dream, and I'm like, I'm probably scared that that's gonna happen again. So it's just so interesting how things happen to us when we're younger and we don't realize how they can, like, kind of impact our mindset. So yes, that's how mine began. And then it was just like bam, bam. Remember this thing that wounded you? Remember this thing that messed up your psychology? Remember this thing that messed up like your trust in men? But also, remember this thing that you did to this individual? Here it is ricocheted back to you. It was like a karmic boomerang, Venus retrograde. I'll be upfront. I used to be ghostess with the mostess. I just thought that ghosting was an easier way of, and I apologize that my hair looks green in this light, like blonde plus this blue lighting equals green hair. But anyways, ghostess with the mostess, yes. I used to think that that was the easiest way of dealing with people, is just like ignore them. If you're not interested, just ignore them. And then they'll get the hint. And I don't know why I didn't realize that was a messed up thing to do. And then Venus retrograde, like that was done to me. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Like, it's kind of not cool to not have a conclusion. Like, it's kind of mean to leave someone strung along. So, bam, boomerang. And then I was like talking to more than one person, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like, if you're not, like, I'm not sleeping with anyone, like it was just literally talking, getting to know, going on dates, things like that. From two different spheres of life. Like they do not know each other, no common friend group. And then it just so happened that I ran into both of them at the same time so I had started talking to both of them during Venus retrograde, and I ran into both of them at the same time during Venus retrograde. So it's like a karmic boomerang. It's like, do you like it when you find out that you're talking to a guy who's also talking to other girls? Like, here, deal with your own karma. Like, who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to flirt with? Whew, that was a lot. So it's just like constantly, just every single like past experience that I've had, like things that I've done to people, things that people have done to me, mirrored themselves via the people I was dating and the things that were coming up. So I'm an astrologer. I know that dating wasn't the best idea during Venus retrograde because they say it just doesn't really reach a culmination. But I learned so much from the individuals that came across. And no ex-boyfriends came back, but ex-love flings did. Just like two more quick stories and we'll jump into everything else. So one was a guy that I had dated 2 years ago, and he reached out to get a tea. So we got tea, because I wasn't even interested. I was just like, what do you want? Because there's one line that always stuck with me. We were on a date, and we were talking about books, and he mentioned that his favorite book was 4 Hour Work Week. And he was like, oh, but I wouldn't recommend that for you. And I was like, why? He was like, because it's dangerous. Like, it makes you want to be an entrepreneur, and I can just tell that you don't have that within you. And that kind of stuck with me. Like, at that point, I didn't know I wanted to start my own business, but then when I started it, like, a year later, I, like, remembered that, and I was like, wow, that fire just, like, isn't within me. Because I'd placed my value, Venus about what we value, in other people, in the people that I was dating. Like, that was a constant theme in my life. So I thought, if this guy who's an entrepreneur and has a sole business tells me that I don't have that fire in me, then I probably don't. And what Venus retrograde taught me, when I met up with him again, like, his business, it just isn't doing great, and I wasn't happy to hear that. He's been hit by some copyright stuff and some lawsuits. That's another Venus retrograde thing, especially in Libra, which rules like contractual things, but contractual things anyways. He had been hit by some stuff, and he asked how I was doing, where I was working, and I told him about my, like, business and how everything was doing really great. And he was like, huh, like, and then he tried to poison that too. Like, he was like, if you were hit by a circumstance like I would, you'd probably lose your drive. Like, you would probably just get discouraged and give up. But it was, like, mirroring to me how different I am now than then. Because then I would have been like, oh, he's probably right, like, and doubted the whole thing. But now I was like, why would I place any value in what you're saying? Like, my value comes from within, like, how I feel about myself. So I didn't listen to that. And then he tried to make, like, an appeal to, like, get me back, to, like, try it again once more. And I used to, like, be down for, like, assholes who would kind of talk down to me because I wanted to, like, earn their affection. But now I was like, no, why would I do that? Because I found everything that I value within myself. Venus retrograde is a very self-love journey, like finding that value that we look for, that validation in other people via yourself. And then one other experience that I wanted to share was, ooh, wow, go real spooky in here. Oh, before I dive into that, so how I view the Venus retrograde journey is like in two chunks. So we have the Scorpio chunk, then we have the Libra chunk. So the Scorpionic energy was very, and that was until Halloween. So October 5th until Halloween. And then from there on, the Libra began. In the first part of October, it was just very like internal psychology, why can I not say this word? Oh my gosh. This is really embarrassing. Psychological. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm not a dumbass, I swear. It's just been a day. And it's been a Venus retrograde, okay? Guys, that's how much this stuff has put me through the ringer. But I'm coming out of it much stronger, and I hope you guys are too. So the October portion was very much like psychology, like really internal, raw, like mirroring all these like deep psychological wounds that I didn't even realize I was carrying with me. And then Halloween, the focus shifted, and it was more so away from my own psychology to how does this psychology permeate how I approach other people. Libra's all about other people. And what we look for as attractive in a partner, what we deem as desirable qualities, what makes us even want to go up and like talk to someone. Because a lot of times if we aren't cognizant of what it is that makes us attracted to someone, we could very much just be like attracted because we want to repeat some sort of dysfunctional role. As dark as that sounds, we could be trying to mimic roles that we've played before, perhaps in past partnerships, perhaps in our childhood. If we're not aware of what it is that's drawing us to this person, we could easily fall into old traps. So then when it moved into Libra, I was like looking at people and I was like, why do I feel like if you just remind me of my ex, why do I feel like this is going to be different? Or if you have this certain energy which makes me feel like a little bit unsafe, like I felt with past people, like how am I ever going to feel safe with you? Just taking a lens to why we partner, who we partner with, why we want to be in a relationship internally, because truly our relationship with ourselves dictates how we relate to other people. So that's how I experienced it as I moved through. Someone tweeted me and was like, it got Ariana Grande, like her #1 song, which like true. Thank You Next, I think was a perfect kind of summary of Venus retrograde because it's reviewing, it's reflecting on our past love partnerships, our relationship with ourselves, our relationships with other people, and finding gratitude in them, finding a lesson in them. Like I feel like every single transit that we experience is like meant to teach us something and like collectively like help us move us onward. And with this Venus retrograde helping us review like past trauma, like the Scorpionic, like transform from that in order to move into partnerships in a less toxic way and find gratitude, because everything that we're reviewing right now, there was a lesson. Like you've dated every single person, there was a lesson in it. Like everything's led you to the person that you are today. Another question that I got was regarding a friendship that a friend reached out and apologized and wanted to make amends, and Venus retrograde is how we relate with friends as well. Venus is how we relate to people. And I would definitely, if someone does apologize to you in this next, or during that journey, I would definitely like listen to what they say. I certainly, when I was reviewing, and as I mentioned, like karma was just boomeranging on me real quick with startling frequency. I definitely was like, wow, I've not been as an amazing person to date. I've definitely done my fair share of things, but I mean, things have been done to me, but I can definitely dole out a few apologies because it's very internal reflecting energy. So there's been a couple people that I was like, I'm sorry about that. That wasn't nice. So I'd listen to people if they do apologize. It's a reflecting energy. However, this does not mean you should run to your ex. No. A lot of people think of Venus retrograde as like an excuse to reunite with their ex, and that's not it. First of all, I want you to realize that who you attract is not necessarily mean that you need to run with that person. You attract the lesson that you need to learn. So if that person comes back, what are they, during Venus retrograde, a time when you're meant to be internally reflect yourself, what are they mirroring to you about you? What is the lesson there? Like, for example, I went to tea with that ex-flame, but I knew it wasn't like, oh, it's divine, like, oh, exes come back and then I'm with them. There was a lesson there. There was a mirror there that I used to place value in, like, what people said to me, and now I find value in my own opinion in myself. It was a lesson. I took it. I drank my tea. I left. So if an ex does come back, it doesn't mean like, oh, it's meant to be, like they came back during Venus retrograde. What are they trying to mirror to you? Think about the time you're with them, the time you are now. What has evolved in you? What feelings do they stir up in you? What revelations came into your mind in which these people come up? All up for display. I've also, a couple of people tweeted or Instagram DM me about like having dreams or thinking about like a past Venus retrograde or a past lover from the past. A past lover from the past. If it couldn't be any clearer that this is an individual from the past. Just thinking about someone or like dreaming about someone, and it's like, is this meant to be? Like, this is really confusing. Like, why would they be coming up during this time? What are they trying to show you? What's the lesson there? And I also feel like there's this element of temptation into this Scorpionic Venus retrograde. Like, it's like, okay, do you think that someone else is going to solve all your problems and make you feel valued and special and loved? Or have you learned to find that love within yourself? That's the Venus retrograde. So it's like, I think there's some temptations being offered right now. Like, oh, like offering this like X flame and we idealize them. Doesn't this look great? And if we can find the strength to be like, no, not now. Because honestly, this was another question I got. I'm not reading these verbatim, but I remember what they said. Another one said, so she had started a relationship pretty early on into Venus retrograde because things started right now don't have like the most steady foundation, because Venus retrograde is more internal. Like, obviously live your life, do what you want to do, but just things started right now have to be reviewed by some way. It's kind of hard to reach a culmination the first time of Venus retrograde, so it's like things might be a little slower to start or might feel a little stagnant or need to be reviewed at a later time. So things born now, like let's say if you're really feeling the urge to like reach out to an ex, know that it probably won't work out right now. It'll probably just like be like because the thing about getting together with past lovers is that there is that feeling of familiarity, and there's this like intense high associated when you come back with them and you like feel like you're literally on drugs because you're just like so overtaken by that emotion. But that doesn't mean that it's contributing to your growth or like the person that you're meant to be. When that fades and you have to deal with reality and you're like, okay, but we actually have core personality differences. Like, there's a reason it didn't work out. So I think another Venus retrograde is just like kind of sussing out the differences of why we attract certain people, what they're reflecting to us about our own psychology, and also resisting temptation. Like, it's very easy to distract ourselves with potential love interests, and it's a much harder path to find that healing from within, or to find your value system from within or your love from within. This was the other story that I was going to share, is that I've struggled with that, just finding my own kind of validation. I've definitely always like had boyfriends and really found like my identity in them. And during Venus retrograde, like I was receiving more romantic attention than I had ever received in my life, and an old me would have just kind of like rode with that and probably like made it official with one or two. I'm just kidding, not two, just one. But with this, I was like, no, I'm not ready. Like, there's just some healing that I'm doing on my own, and there's like a focus on myself that I've never really had, and I'm finally feeling comfortable in my own space. Why would I give that up right away just for someone to be there? You know, like, it's fun, but if it's not what you truly want or helping your growth, just because it's a boyfriend doesn't mean that that's better than spending time with your own time. Everything is an investment. Whether it's your time, your energy, your money, like everything is an investment. And time that you spend investing in someone else is time that you take away from yourself. Then someone else asked me, breakups instigated during this time, are they likely to take an effect? As I mentioned, it is a very internal reflecting energy. So the decision was probably a thoughtful one, just kind of that individual really thinking about their own time, what they really value and what they have time for. So it was likely like a thoughtful reflection on their part. But as I mentioned, there is this element of reviewing, reflecting with this Venus retrograde. So things might have to be brought up again or revisited at some point. I would look to, if something did happen in your relationship, get an ephemeris and check the degree that Venus was at when it occurred. So for example, if it was at like 3 degrees Scorpio, which was the last week of October, I would look at when it goes direct, when it hits 3 degrees Scorpio and what happens on that day. Likely it'll have to be revisited or have to have a conversation. It's not that breakups won't be taken into effect. There might just be some sort of like element that needs to be reviewed in some circumstance. So, and keep in mind, if you are going through that, the rule of relationships, if something is good for one person, it is good for both, whether you realize that or not. A lot of times it's like, what is he doing? Like, we're twin flames, da da da. On an ego level, we protest, right? But on a soul level, if one person is not in it, both people should not be in it. And you're worthy of more than that. If one person's like halfway there, you might protest now, but you'll realize down the line. Or if you break up with someone, they might protest at an ego level. But on a soul level, what's good for you is good for the other person. So those were some of the lessons that I learned. You guys reached out with a couple. I think I've touched on most. One other was how does this impact each of the signs? So I'll just go through really quickly. I would listen to your rising sign and then your sun and then even your moon and just take what works and leaves the rest. So with Scorpio risings, with Venus going through your sign and then into your 12th house, there's this energy of perhaps you want to like redo your whole look. Like Venus wants to make things pretty, but it's Scorpio, so it could be like a drastic change, like shaving off your hair, doing something different, like really reevaluating how you show up to the world and how that impacts your own value system. And then when it retrogrades into Libra, you might be feeling a lot more private, more internal. Definitely meditate a lot if you're feeling like you can't find that value system. Just sit down, find some time to connect with whatever it is that you believe in. Libra, so with it going through your second house and then into your first, Venus in the second house, some money could come back to you, could have came back to you in October. Like, for example, you sent an invoice for a project and then you didn't get it back until then. Or you might want to reevaluate your work, like what you do for money, or make it more pretty, more harmonious. And then when it goes into your first house, could be like really reevaluating and going into November, really being like, it's your ruler. So you might be like, what am I doing? What path am I on? Like, how do I show up to the world? How do I value myself, etc. Virgo risings, Venus, third house. And also just a note, please check the degrees. Please check the degrees. If you use Placida system, if you use whole sign, whole house, you're good. Anyways, because for example, like Venus, let's say my cusp of my third house is Scorpio 8 degrees. Like I wouldn't start feeling it in my third house until it's at Scorpio 9 degrees. Does that make sense? So look, if you use Placida system. Okay, yes, so Virgo risings, Virgo and Venus in the third house. For me, I mean, third house is like kind of website stuff, and I was like renovating my whole website. I actually did a whole whole transformation because, you know, Scorpio's like, Venus wants to make things pretty, and the Libra energy wants to make things pretty, but Scorpio's interested in total transformation. So this could be really renovating how you show up online, your web presence, your advertising, your marketing. It could be a reevaluation of your relationship with your siblings, trying to make it more harmonious, or perhaps eliminating some aspect of your like neighbors, or that sounds so bad. I don't mean like eliminate your neighbors, but let's say like you have bridge club with your neighbors every Thursday. Maybe like either eliminating it or transmuting it until it's more positive. Like this Venus retrograde, I really feel like it's about transmutation of something negative to something positive. Yeah, so maybe reevaluating your relationship with your siblings, reevaluating I've been writing a lot with this. Venus retrograde is very internal energy, third house, how we communicate. Yes, so gosh, where am I? Oh, Leo rising. So Venus would begin in your 4th house and go into your 3rd. So Venus in the 4th house could be some renovation project from the past on your home, making it more pretty, perhaps totally transmuting something in your house, turning it from negative to positive, maybe improving relationships with your family members, noticing your role. Retrograde's an internal energy, your role into it. And then Cancer risings, with it in your 5th house, maybe some old, like, I would say out of anyone for exes to, like, seriously come back, it would be, like, Cancer risings, or what would that be? That would be Gemini, Taurus, just because it's, like, 5th and 7th houses, respectively. So 5th house, yes, an old fling could come back, an old art project that you had forgotten could come back, you could, like, decide to do it again, some sort of issue with your kids, wanting to transmute your relationship with them from negative to positive. Venus in the 6th house, this would be my, I'm so sorry, it's like, okay, Gemini risings, yes. My Gemini rising loves, you could perhaps want to eliminate some aspect of your working environment. You could have wanted to really transmute a relationship with a coworker, or perhaps like take a lens into an issue that you had with your health in the last month and a half. Know that if you have been kind of in uncertainty of what's going on with your health, you should get answers when Venus starts moving direct again and makes its way. And then Venus is a nice sign, so it should give you some nice effects. Taurus, with Venus going in your 7th house, reevaluating the partnerships in your life, taking a look at how the role that you play and mirroring things to them. Perhaps people from your past that you haven't settled things with coming back just to mirror something to you. Remember, this energy is about you. It's not about other people. With my Aries risings, Venus retrograde in your 8th house could be money to you coming from other people. Like, let's say, for example, a friend of mine, the company she works for got sued a while back, but she didn't know about it, and she just got a check in the mail, for dividends from that. So, like, stuff like that, like, money you forgot about coming to you from other people, or reevaluating how you truly, like, intimately connect with people, and where that comes from, and if you feel safe, like, opening up and really merging, like 8th house is all about merging things, whether it's financial, moral, emotional. 9th house, my Pisces rising loves, look to perhaps past circumstances coming up around, like, a travel opportunity. Like, I'm a Pisces, it's my sun, so for me, like, I really wanted to go to Thailand. Like, I was like, I will be there in the beginning of January and February, because right now what I do for work, I can do it from anywhere, so I'm like, why would I not take advantage and just work somewhere else, just to see what it's like to, like, live somewhere else. But it, like, slowed down, like, Venus retrograde, it's kind of like wondering, like, is this of value to you? And make you wonder, like, does this value? And I'm hoping that when it goes direct, we all, like, kind of feel a burst. And it's like, what expands our world? So for me, I'm like, I want to get this certification. I want to travel. Like, it's all of these things, and, like, really questioning, like, what do we really value? My Aquarius risings, with it in your 10th house, reevaluating how you, like, show up at work, your reputation, your public persona, if it serves you, if you are truly valued for the work that you do. Maybe if some of you don't feel valued, this would be the time that you start looking for another job or another opportunity of where you want to go, like how you want to be seen as from other people. Capricorn risings, within your 11th house, looking at your friendship group and wondering, are these people serving me? Do I feel valued by them? Do I feel that I am a valuable part of my community? And perhaps, as I mentioned, Scorpio is transforming, like burning to the ground to rebuild. So maybe you felt the need to, like, burn down your social circles and just build up new ones, or you don't feel valued by those people, so you're like, I'm ready to, like, walk away from this and find something new. Sagittarians, with it in your 12th house, could be some sort of, like, just kind of, like, insights coming to you about your own value, or, like, feeling guidance of which way you should go. In your, like, subconscious, it could be, like, really, really deep repressed stuff coming up, and, like, kind of for you to deal with. Your own programming, how that affects you. Really take a look, spend lots of time alone. I mean, this kind of already passed, but analyze if there's anything that really came to you, really stuck out to you, because now you guys are moving into your Jupiter and Sagittarius heyday, but make sure that you go into it knowing where you are and where you want to go. So yeah, that's just some quick info of where you likely felt this energy. Yeah, and if there's anything that I didn't cover, feel free to tweet me at Haley Comment Astro or Instagram DM me at Haley Comment Astrology. I could talk about Venus retrograde all day. I hope you all have a beautiful night. Take care of yourselves. Find that sweet value within yourself. You are valuable, and it's not up to anyone else in this world to tell you that. It is up to you to tell yourself that. A Venus retrograde lesson. All right, till we meet again. Take care.